Hey developers, when you're starting a new Vue application, you have to make a lot of choices. Should you choose Vue 2 or Vue 3? Should you use a state management system? Should you use something called the Options API or Composition API? There's a lot of things you have to choose, and it's not always easy to understand what the best choice is. So in this video, I'm gonna break down what I consider the best stack for Vue.js and one that you should highly consider using in the future. And this stack will also give you the most support, it should be long lasting, and I just consider it the easiest to start with. Hey, and if you're new to these videos, my name's Eric. Make sure you click on that subscribe button at the bottom, and yeah, let's just dive into the video. Let's take a look at the best Vue stack. So first, let me say that this is my opinion. You may have your own. Make sure if you do have a difference in opinion, leave a comment below. I really appreciate it. So we're gonna cover a lot of things here today. We're gonna talk about the Vue versioning, like what version of Vue you should use, some of the build tools, what the kind of layout you should use, router, the state management system, the test framework, the starter template component library. So these are kind of the major things that you want to consider when you're creating a Vue application. So let's go into the very first topic, and this is the Vue version. We actually have two primary candidates here, and I'm going to set this up, and we're always going to try to consider a couple of different options. And really the second place option in a lot of these is pretty good too. So of course we have Vue 2, which is the OG, I call it, and it's been around for a long time. Everybody knows and loves it. And then there's Vue 3, which has been out for over a year now. So if I was creating an app today for 2022, 2021, and in the future, I would certainly choose Vue 3. I think the idea of creating a Vue 2 app is not the right answer because Vue 3 first is the latest and greatest. It has the composition API. It has way better TypeScript support. It has smaller, faster. We know for a fact that the Vue core team is going to continuously be adding updates and upgrades to Vue 3, while Vue 2, I know there's maybe one more update that's going to happen, but then they're going to be done with updates. So if you want future support, Vue 3 is the way to go. And of course, there's script setup. Now, some of these things you can add into Vue 2. There's certain libraries. The ecosystem has really made it easy for people who are stuck on Vue 2 to use some of these features. But why start on Vue 2 and have to add all these extra libraries when you can just start on Vue 3 and get everything for free? The only caveat I would say here why you may not want to start with Vue 3 is if you have a specific project and it has a very specific library you have to use, and that library does not support Vue 3 yet. There is some circumstances where that could happen, but I would say that's since it's almost like a year and a half after Vue 3 has been out there, most of the big libraries have Vue 3 support now, so I think that is going away. And if your library is so specific that they refuse to upgrade to Vue 3 or make it compatible with Vue 3, you may want to consider using a different library at this point, because I have a feeling that library is probably never going to be updated ever again. So let's go into our next topic, and that is build tools. Basically, how we're going to create the app. So really, right now, I think the two major contenders of creating an app, and we're going to think of this in the Vue 3 lens, because that's the one I recommended, is to use either Vue CLI or Vite. So both are scaffolding tools. Well, let me rephrase that. Vue CLI is definitely a scaffolding tool. It has some cool features like Vue UI. You can kind of look at your app with this UI interface. It has like this plugin support inside of it. And then when you create apps with it, it has this scaffolding tool. It'll ask you a set of questions. While Vite is more of ESM build tool. It supports more than just Vue. It supports React, supports Svelte. So I would definitely go with Vite. So you might be surprised on this because Vite is definitely newer, and I'm not just picking it because it's newer and it's been created by Evan You, but I feel like Vite is going to be the direction where the Vue ecosystem is going to go in the future. I have a feeling that Vue CLI one day will probably be using Vite, or they'll combine Vite and Vue CLI into one somehow. I have a feeling that Vue CLI, which uses Webpack's days are numbered. I also feel like it's just a better tool. So it has super fast reload times, has HMR. And one of the biggest reasons I might hesitate to recommend Vite is because you don't have some of that plugin system that Vue CLI has, or you don't have, if you just start with Vite out of the box, you're going to have to install your own router. It doesn't give you any nice cool menu to choose some things like your ES linter or prettier. But right now there's so many community templates for Vite that has those things in them. I really don't feel like that's a big barrier. So if you have to have a router and you have to have some sort of like state management system or a few other things, and you don't want to bother with having to install Vite and then look up different ways of doing things, and you want it all in one, there's definitely tons of templates on that. Okay, let's talk about single file component layouts. So this is kind of a hot topic too in the Vue community recently. So let's take a look at the contenders. So on the left-hand side here, this is called the Options API. And the Options API has this curly bracket, closing curly bracket. It has this components, methods, computed data, has a few others if you want. And then this is essentially how you create your app. You'd have this script tag, and then you also have a template tag. While on the right side, this is called the Composition API because it has this setup, and then you kind of do everything inside your setup and you return an object. So this is kind of the two different ways of handling your apps nowadays. I'm going to go with the Composition API as my recommended choice. And in particular, I would say use the script setup. So on the right-hand side here, you can kind of structure your single file components in Vue to use this script laying, well, basically script setup. And then you can even add laying for TypeScript if you want to use TypeScript. And then you put all your logic in between the opening and closing brackets. You don't have to create this object. You don't have to do any returns or anything. Every single variable that's inside here is available inside the template. You use this ref, you can see right here, this ref, if you want to use reactivity inside of it. That's one thing you would probably want to learn if you're using the Composition API is learn ref and reactive. And then if you want to, you look at computed and a few other things as well. I did a video on this script setup. You can click here, top right-hand corner, and you can take a look and learn more about it. So let's take a look at the router. Now the router is pretty simple in our case here. If you're creating a new app, you want to use the Vue router or the next version. It's under the next tag, but it's basically version 4. It's the official Vue router. It works really well. I haven't seen too many complaints about it. Maybe a couple little issues people have had, but they're very responsive on their GitHub page. It works great, and yeah, this would be the one that you want to use. Next is state management. So this is the idea of you want to say or share data between different places in the app. So let's say you have multiple components and you want to share information. So back in the day, Vuex was kind of the OG on this. Vuex was the management system kind of based on the Flux pattern. And then there was Pinia that just came out, I don't know, a couple years ago. That's been slowly gaining popularity too, which is very similar to Vuex, but it's more of a lightweight version of it. So if I was creating an app today, I would definitely use Pinia. It's recommended by the core team now. In fact, some people say that Pinia and Vuex are going to combine into one. So I would say just use Pinia for right now. It has excellent TypeScript support. It makes it a little bit more straightforward to use than Vuex, meaning that they took out like mutations. Kind of the ideal way if you want to add state management into your Vue app. I would say a caveat, you may not need to use a reactive or a state management system at all, because there is things like ref or reactive, and both allow you to share data between multiple components. You can easily create what's called a composable that you can import into your components that has some data that is basically shared in the whole app because it's reactive or ref. And you can kind of create a mini state management system yourself with very little effort. So that's the first thing I would do. Let's take a look at testing frameworks. So really the two testing frameworks everybody talks about with Vue is the testing library Vue, which is built on Vue test utils. It's kind of like a lightweight layer on top of it, and then Cypress. So between these two, I would say use both. A good recommendation is to use both testing library Vue and Cypress together. So use the testing library Vue for more your unit testing, but then use Cypress for your bigger apps for your end-to-end testing. I think both together work really well. And then I would also suggest adding these to your pull requests, to your build system, to your continuous integration, continuous deployment system. That way these tests are run every time you do anything. That way you can make sure that you don't accidentally break stuff when you push something into your code base. Let's talk about the starter templates. So let's talk about starter templates. There's really two starter templates I'd recommend. One is the Vue 3 Enterprise boilerplate, and the other one is Vitesse. So I actually did a video in Vitesse. You can see here in the top left-hand corner if you want to click on it and learn more about it. It's a really cool starter template, but I've also really liked Vue 3 Enterprise boilerplate. But I would really choose Vitesse. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It uses Vite, has lots of features, has file-based routing, Pinia, auto imports, and like I said, I did a video on it. Check it out. I think this is like probably the best starter template I've seen for Vue 3. Component libraries. This is a hot topic in the Vue community too. So there's a ton of different component libraries, and they have been slowly upgrading to Vue 3, but we know Vuetify alpha version is Vue 3 compatible. It's a material design framework. There's also Quasar, which they call beyond the framework. It does so many different things. I did a video on it a little while back. You can click here if you like to learn more about it. Essentially, it's like a framework, but it also has its own CLI. It can even also compile down to be used in mobile apps. It's really crazy everything it has. But really, I would choose none of them. And this is kind of funny because I know both people. There's a lot of people that love both of those frameworks, and there's so many other ones out there. I would say I would settle for something more lightweight like Tailwind CSS, just to keep it lightweight. And I really feel like those are great if you need a really quick project, but I just throw Tailwind into almost all my projects because it's just so simple. I like the utility classes. So I highly recommend Tailwind CSS, and you can get that working with Vue 3, not a problem. Last one, this is a bonus one, IDE Plugins. I did another video on this, on different plugins for Vue. You can check it out right here where I talk about Vola and Vitor. Forever, I used Vitor for all my apps. It was a VS Code extension. It still is. It's used a lot in Vue 2. And then there's Vola. It's another VS Code extension. So I would choose Vola. I have switched from Vitor probably like 6 months ago. And I've been really surprised at how well it works. Has great support for TypeScript. It worked really well with script setup while Vitor didn't work well at all for a while. It has great language support, so you can get auto completion in your templates. It just really worked well for me. And it's the one I'd always recommend for any Vue project, Vue 3 project, is use Vola. And by the way, I didn't create a slide for this, but if you're wondering if you're creating new apps, should you use JavaScript or TypeScript, I would 100% go with TypeScript. It just makes things so much easier. All right, so that's it. I appreciate it. Leave a comment below if you like this. Also, check out some of my other videos above. Thanks.